Yes, people, Ricky here from Behind the Bars TV. Hope you're all fit and well. Just like to say a massive thanks to all my subscribers. I'm over 13,500 now. The subscribers are flying up lately. But a lot of my videos are getting a lot of views. The podcast I've just done recently, done very well. So if you keep watching, there's plenty more to come. I've got another podcast dropping this Sunday. But in this episode, I'm going to talk about some Glasgow gangsters. So the ones I'm talking about are Specky, Goofy, and Piggy. Might sound like funny names, but these are the nicknames of three of the most violent and dangerous gangsters who ever picked up a blade, a gun, or a machete in Glasgow. Stewart Specky Boyd was born in 1963. He got his nickname Specky because of his glasses. Boyd controlled his criminal business from the Royal Oak pub in Nitchell, Glasgow. From there, scores of murders were planned. Boyd was a well-connected criminal. He had close business relationships with drug lord John Healy, who in turn was a close associate and brother-in-law of crime boss Tam McGraw. Stewart Specky Boyd, together with his two henchmen, first surfaced in Fergusley Park and Paisley in the late 1980s. Now, these three gangsters that I'm talking about now, two of them are actually dead, and another one is serving 16 years in prison. So this is what happens if you lead that sort of lifestyle. You either end up dead, shot, stabbed, or in prison. Or sometimes you end up shot, stabbed, and in prison. Or you end up in the graveyard. So this is what happens when you lead that lifestyle. So any of the youngsters going down that path now, just have a good hard look at your life and think of where it's leading and where it could end up. You could end up dead or in prison for the rest of your life. That's what happens when you lead this sort of lifestyle. The rundown area was and still is one of the most deprived parts of Britain. In 1987, a community business was set up with almost 200 grand of public money after an initiative by a Labour MP, Tommy Graham, and senior local Labour figures. Fergusley Park Community Business spawned FCB Security, which was given free premises by the authorities on preferential contracts. It was meant to provide jobs for local people, and it did, but it was controlled by the local gangsters and became a honeypot for Boyd's gang. Behind the uniforms were extorting protection money and selling drugs. Tamazapan, mainly jellies as the street calls them. So Specky and his gang sort of took over this business that was set up by the local MP and used it as a front for extorting money and selling drugs. But everyone will have heard of Tomazzi's jellies. I think they're 30 milligrams, really, really strong. A lot of people were on them at the time, and back up in Glasgow, I've heard a few stories on them. Tell the story on here about a lad that I was in Franklin prison with. He woke up in a police station and he'd knocked on the cell door and said to the coppers, "What am I in here for?" Couldn't remember a single thing. Been on the jellies, off his head the night before. Copper turned around and said, "You're in for killing a policeman." He ended up with a 20-odd wreck. He didn't even know. He can't even remember doing it. So that's how bad them jellies are. So Boyd and his gang controlled the turf and had no real competition. Mark Rennie, a 26-year-old junkie, probably didn't think he was. To feed his habit, he borrowed £40 from a moneylender and attempted to turn this over by small-time dealing. He didn't make the repayments, which quickly spiraled out of control, so he ended up owing hundreds and then thousands of pounds of borrowing this 40 quid. He needed to make an example of this kid in case other people tried to take the piss out of him as well. He sent three of his team to warn off Rennie to make him pay one way or another. It was a cold day in November 95 when they turned up on the doorstep of Mark and his two brothers. The three wearing FCB security jackets were George Goofy Docherty, Robert Piggy Pickett, and Stewart Gillespie, whose brother Billy was manager of the company. Gillespie, who was in charge, handed a gun to Pickett and told him, "Shoot the fat bastard." Piggy clicked the trigger of the shotgun, but it didn't fire, so Docherty waded in with a machete and mayhem ensued, and he started chopping him. It got even more serious 6 months later. Mark Rennie clearly hadn't learned his lesson and tried to get his own back, vandalising the cars of the two Gillespie brothers. On May the 23rd, while trying to run away, he was shot in the back. The bullet pierced his lung, spleen, and then heart. He died instantly. Stewart Gillespie was the gunman. Local MP Irene Adams, now Baroness Adams, took on the gang and was fiercely critical of not only the gangsters but the company which shielded them, FCB. She and her family received death threats and allegedly a contract was put out on her, but probably because she was so prominent it went no further. Others weren't so lucky. Witnesses were savagely attacked. One man was so severely beaten that he lost an eye, and this widespread intimidation led directly to Strathclyde Police setting up the first witness protection unit. Several crucial witnesses were rehoused and given new identities. As witnesses testified, Stewart Gillespie was convicted and handed a 25-year sentence for the murder of Reddy. He was also with his two associates, Piggy and Goofy, of the earlier attempted murder. Specky, who was due to stand trial for conspiracy to commit the murder, was in sunglasses hiding out in Spain, where he fled to. Later, confidently, he decided to return to stand trial. After 7 days of hearing and 45 minutes of consideration, the jury unanimously found him not guilty. FCB subsequently collapsed, owing more than 300 grand. A 4-year investigation into alleged fraud did not result in charges. Boyd's narrow escape from justice only bolstered his reputation and his commercial worth. He became involved with some of Glasgow's biggest gangsters, and in particular John Healy, Tam McGraw's brother-in-law. Healy hired an enforcer, and when Healy went down in 1997 on a 10-year stretch for importation of 220 pounds of cannabis in a kid's holiday minivan, Specky took over the Healy taxi business and the security firm. 3 years later, in 2000, Boyd was contacted by a frontman in Tam McGraw's security company, Scooby Rodden, who had been charged with extorting and terrorising another security company principal. It was claimed that Rodden wanted the main witness at his trial intimidated so he didn't turn up. Boyd did threaten the witness, John Jeffrey, but he made a schoolboy error, failing to notice CCTV in the room where he did it. "Don't ID that fella or things will happen to you," Specky warned. Jeffrey replied, "Things better not," to which Boyd threatened, "After this case, we'll do you." Jeffrey did not testify, but Rodden walked on a not proven verdict. In October, Jeffrey's house was sprayed with bullets. A warrant was issued for Boyd, but he managed to keep on the run by travelling between Scotland and Spain before he was finally arrested in Aviemore. The charge was intimidating a witness, and in July 2001 he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 80 months in prison. After he was released, he returned to what was his new base, the white-walled Andalusian town of Mija, above the Fenguala coast. He continued to deal in drugs, funneling them back to Scotland, although now the Russian mafia was moving in on him. On 28th of June 2003, 40-year-old Specky was at the wheel of his Audi TT sports car when it careened through a crash barrier on the outskirts of Mija. It ploughed into a BMW heading the other way. 6 people were killed in a fireball, prompting one local officer to comment that it looked as if a bomb had gone off. Boyd, his daughter, and his girlfriend's 3-year-old child all died. The suspicion that it was deliberately engineered has never been confirmed. After Boyd's death, it became clear that he had been at the centre of a massive drug surveillance operation by the National Crime Intelligence Service. An NCIS source said, "We were well aware of who he was and his involvement in drugs and organised crime. He was the subject of our attention in the days before he died." Stewart Gillespie also died violently in a Paisley flat in April 2013 at the hands of convicted killer Norman Carlton, the ex-boyfriend of his daughter. Gillespie's family posted a funeral notice in the Paisley Daily Express. It said that not only he had died suddenly, his brother Billy had also died of cancer. George Goofy Docherty was also murdered. He had joined up with the Lions gang in Glasgow, who were at war with another crime family, the Daniels. In August 2006, he was knocked down by a burgundy-coloured Mitsubishi Charisma, repeatedly stabbed and left to die in a street in Tollcross. It was the 3rd attempt on his life since he was released from Barlinnie prison after the Rennie sentence. Robert Piggy Pickett also joined the Lions crime gang. He has been slightly more fortunate than the 2 men he went down with on the Rennie charge. He was shot 3 times in the stomach in December 2006 and lost a kidney. To Robert Piggy Pickett, the only survivor, was caged for 16 years last May over a series of murder bids on rivals, including Stephen Bonzo Daniel. Norman Carlton will serve a minimum of 22 years in prison for the murder of Stewart Gillespie. These are some of Glasgow's most vicious and violent gangsters. This is just a part one to this story. There's plenty more to come. I'm doing some more research on it. But if there's anybody back there that wants to appear on my channel and have a good talk about the Scottish prison system and the gangsters from up in Scotland, give us a shout. Drop an email and we'll see what we can do. Because up in Scotland there is some notorious gangsters that have come out of Glasgow and the surrounding areas. And there's very interesting stories. But if anyone knows of any stories, like I say, just drop us an email, let us know, and I'll be sure to put it on my channel. But thanks all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you do like the content. Take care, people.